Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Backlog Banter. Today, we're here to talk about what has been troubling many youths, and that is the problem of Miis.
Yes.
Where'd they come from? Where'd they go? Cotton Eye Joe, all these things. The Miis are something that has been around in Nintendo culture for almost 2 decades at this point.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about them, why they were so popular for a couple generations, and then why they've sort of been left in the back burner, and maybe what the future holds with our funny little animated friends.
Yeah, we're gonna do the where they came from and where they went in the same video. So
And where will they go?
where will they go?
Anyone ever ask Cotton Eye Joe that? No one ever asked Cotton Eye Joe how Cotton Eye Joe.
I think the problem is the people they can't find Cotton Eye Joe.
That's a good point.
So they can't ask him
Yeah.
where he will.
Yeah.
The point is, I have a hypothesis that I lightly floated to earlier today.
Sure.
Which is the idea that the Miis are among the most iconic characters Nintendo has ever come up with.
Sure.
And I mean that for a couple of reasons, but the number one reason is just simply the proliferation of them.
Correct, yeah. I mean, they fuck like rabbits.
They fuck like rabbits. You could just because there's no gestation period,
No, absolutely
right?
not. Well, the gestation period is how long does it take you to click from create to when that hand is like wiggling.
3 minutes, 4 minutes. So when you look at just the raw numbers of it, right?
Yeah.
The Wii being one of Nintendo's best-selling systems, and then the Wii software that uses the Miis. Obviously, a shit ton of games use the Miis, but the core Wii titles being most of Nintendo's best-selling games of all time.
Mm-hmm. According to Nintendo, there are nearly 217 million Miis. That's just a lot of Miis. I just wanted to find out.
Is in the world?
Yeah, I guess so.
No, that can't possibly be right.
Why?
Because there's 100 million Wii's. You're telling me that...
People only make 2? I don't know.
You're telling me that only 1 in 5
That was the
people
first
that
statistic that I saw.
I reject the statistic. Because that would mean that 80% of people that owned a Wii never made a Mii.
No, I said 214 million.
214 million.
Yes.
I heard 21 million.
No.
214 million is a lot of Miis.
Yes.
That seems right to me. I unreject the statistic. That is just a level of identifiability.
Sure.
That even a lot of Nintendo's S-tier characters don't have. Mm-hmm. I mean, we always mention it, but the parade of characters that wraps around the Nintendo stores in Japan, when you're putting fucking Pikmin character on there, even when you're putting an Animal Crossing character on
absolutely.
there, you're not hitting the numbers of Miis. Now, obviously, it's a little tricky, right? Because what is a Mii?
Yeah.
It's customizable for everybody, but
there is not a Mii. I mean, I guess the closest that you could get in terms of meme potential would be Matt. The boxing Mii in sports games.
And Sakurai tried to standardize them for Smash
Sure,
Brothers.
That's true. With the sword fighter, the gunner, and the brawler. They have specific looks, but I guess maybe the closest might be there's like frankly a Mii that looks a lot like Tucker Hazel, which is like a white guy with brown hair. And
the guest Miis.
Yeah, the default ones. But I think you're just right in terms of how many people have been exposed to these characters, especially because, and I think even comparing this to some of the other really popular video game characters, Miis are almost exclusively casual game icons.
Yeah.
They are not only in a lot of games, which I think is really what we're going to talk about here, of why they became so popular and because they were able to be placed into so many scenarios because they're so customizable, but they were in the kinds of games that people that will not play games with iconic protagonist characters are playing. When you're able to make your own Mii for Wii Sports or play as a Mii in Mario Kart or Smash Bros. Or whatever, these are the kind of games that anyone can play and then therefore have at least some exposure to Miis.
Yeah, and there's also one of the things I really love about Miis is that there's a unifying quality to Miis. Most games on Wii, whether made by Nintendo or not, you can set your profile icon as a Mii.
Yeah.
And obviously on Wii U, it goes even further with Wara Wara Plaza. You see your Mii every time you turn on the system.
Yeah.
But
the Miis were inescapable during that generation.
The idea is bring your Mii into the games you're already playing, have your Mii sort of represent games even when they're not actually playable. It's a level of intimacy that I think that the Miis allow you to develop towards your games and your system in a way that no other avatar really ever has, and a way that Nintendo largely ended up rejecting in the end with the Switch era.
Yeah.
But I think that that's an underappreciated part of the Mii's significance. Your one Mii could be everywhere with you.
Sure.
And you were in the game.
Yeah. And that is how I remember treating me as when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Is that I get to play as myself in a game, and that's kind of cool. But for me, Meme Maker was the real draw,
Yeah.
which was just creating as many weird characters as I could. I remember in specific, my dad made a big orange guy with a beanie whose name was Mungo.
Yeah.
And Mungo was on my Wii, and I'm like, that's Mungo. That's
Right.
I don't think I've ever used Mungo in anything, but I would go on to the Meme Maker so often that just seeing is like, okay, oh, that's my friends and my mom, my grandma, whatever. Oh, and Mungo. There's Mungo.
And then Mungo was in the background of fucking Wii Baseball or something,
yeah.
right?
True, absolutely.
He sort of proliferated around.
Yeah, yeah. Which is, I think, one of the coolest parts of Mii technology is that just having Mii's in your system hardware means that they are instantly transportable as background characters or supporting characters or whatever to a huge amount of games. And you and I have been playing a couple of these games recently. We played Wii Party, we played Wii Party U, we played Wii Music, we play Motion,
everything.
and not only do you choose your Mii, which is whatever, that's fine, but also the Mii's that you've made are then the characters that you're interacting with for mini games, that are in the background of the stands, that are cheering for you, that come up in the corners on Wii Party when you do something cool. It's really fun that the data is so simple that they're able to just, your guys are able to be everywhere. These aren't just, I mean, there are generic Mii's. There's like, the default Mii's that they'll fill in the crowds with, but presumably if you make enough Mii's, all the Mii's can be your Mii's, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, they're so simple, technologically speaking, that you could put them in your Wii Remote.
Yeah.
And you could bring your Wii Remote to a friend's house and then add your Mii to their system when you play multiplayer or whatever. Nintendo was very smart in how simple they made the whole process. It feels so natural.
Sure.
That when John and I are playing Wii Sports Resort and we're playing the basketball pickup game, the crowd, the other players are all our Mii's. But at the same time, I think another part beyond this sort of ubiquity of the Mii's, of your Mii's in these games, is how fun it is to make them.
Oh, sure.
That's the other part of the Mii Maker that I think is so important.
Yeah.
I don't really get into character customization in games often.
Yeah.
Because it's they have moved in a direction on the whole where a depth of options and your ability to either recreate yourself in minute detail or making some kind of fucked up, horrifying creature.
Yeah, like Street Fighter 6.
Is the name of the game, right? And so I end up finding it actually very intimidating when I'm starting.
I totally agree with you.
When I start Starfield, I'm like, okay, I know that if I spend 90 minutes in here, I can make somebody that looks identical to me.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of pressure.
Sure.
I think Nintendo found this perfect balance between expressivity in the options, but also simplicity, to where there's fun little music in the background and there's great sound effects.
Yeah.
And anybody can make a Mii in 5 minutes, and the sort of there's enough of a standardization between everyone's characters to where you don't have to worry if it doesn't look quite like you. This is the
They
Mii,
never do.
It's the Mii version of you.
Yes.
And I think that's a key difference.
No, and what's interesting about the ways that Mii's have progressed over the years, and certainly stopping at the Switch era to an extent, but is that the simplicity was mostly everything but the face.
Yeah.
I mean, you have like a reasonable slider of body width and body height that you can choose, and you can put on red pants or not red pants.
Yeah.
But the face is where all the effort goes, and of course that's also true for other character creators as well.
Right.
But the fact that there's just a set of a couple eyes and you can move them around, it's not about the depth of the chin. It's not about the width of how I guess you can make your eyes wide set, but the how sunken in your cheeks are, how like
They don't give
how
a
many
fuck
scars you
How
have.
big your earlobes are. Like this,
There's a level of granularity that is certainly interesting and obviously has an appeal in other character creators, but I like that Mii's are kind of alien.
Well, because there's no pressure.
Yeah.
And it's a weird way to frame it, because all the pressure when I'm playing like a Western RPG is self-imposed. But I do think it's implicitly there.
Sure.
It's like, we gave you all these tools, now make something that looks like you, or looks like whatever celebrity or fucking horrifying abomination you want to make.
Yeah.
But here Nintendo says, okay, here's a bunch of like essentially Mr. Potato Head pieces. And and clip them together in a way that represents you, but isn't beholden to your image. And I think that that's really great. And so when you combine that ease and that playful quality with their ubiquity everywhere, I think it's pretty easy to understand why they were so popular. And I don't think that this would be radically true, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Wii series games wouldn't be as popular if they weren't Mii focused.
Oh, sure. And actually, this is something we've talked about in a couple of our recent videos because we've been talking quite a bit about specifically 7th Gen Nintendo.
Yeah.
Is the cohesiveness of
Yeah.
their brand in that time. Wii was a brand not only in the console and the box art and literally the naming of half a dozen or more games,
Yeah.
but through Mii's, which is a really fun way to play on words. Mii
Totally.
is Wii with the W flipped upside down.
Yeah.
And the two eyes in Wii are two little guys, and the shape of the Mii with the head and that's not quite connected to the body sometimes, and the floating hands kind of represents the eyes in Wii, and Wii is multiple people and Mii is one person.
It's literally perfect branding.
I cannot imagine the amount of time that was put into synergizing all of this.
It's
'Cause
immaculate.
It's not obvious.
No.
And that's what's so interesting about having a console named Wii is who the fuck came up with that? And what was wrong with it?
And it was not popular at the time.
No, God, no.
But I think Nintendo saw their own vision. But what's interesting with this generation, too, that I think about sometimes, is that the Wii and DS were harmonized in some ways, but were still quite disparate in others.
Sure.
There was no sense of cohesion between the systems.
yeah.
Even
Very,
though,
very, very few games actually allowed you to interact.
yeah, I mean, even though they obviously share the same Blue Ocean philosophy, they don't share the Mii's. They don't share
Menus.
No, the menus at least have something of a common general feel.
Yeah, white and gray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is that these systems are like parallel in a lot of ways, but they don't intersect that much.
Yeah.
But it feels like, to me at least, with Wii U and 3DS, the Wii's influence eclipsed the DS's influence significantly.
Well, totally. And I think that's obviously because the Wii was actually like a system.
Yeah.
The DS had a menu. You could change your brightness. You can go into a little bit of settings, a clock, set an alarm. I remember feeling I was so cool and I set an alarm on my DS. I'm like, I can't believe my DS can do this. Or choose your DS game or your Game Boy game in the game pack. But the Wii, I think, imposing its qualities when evolving into the Wii U, but then also onto the DSi, which is obviously where those lines started becoming blurred, but then also onto the 3DS, which I believe is where... Well, actually, let me just rewind. Were there Mii's on DSi? No, there wasn't a Mii Maker? Okay.
No,
so
Mii Maker on DSi.
it becomes that 8th generation, Wii U, 3DS, the consoles are much more similar. They talk together a lot more than Wii and DS did, and Mii's become a front-facing part of both of them, not only in a incredibly obvious way, like inescapable, as we said earlier with the Wii U, but having a Mii character creator on the DS for the first time.
Yeah,
or on a handheld for the first time is what I meant.
You do make a good point about DSi. I really did love my DSi.
Yeah.
And that is definitely the first point of them starting to connect. And especially, there's a lot more just like fun utility on DSi.
Yeah.
And
there are apps.
There are apps.
Yes.
And that is definitely of a Wii spirit. But I don't really think it is until this convergence that we're talking about in 7th gen, where it becomes obvious that Nintendo is making one ecosystem. It goes from the DS and Wii that had a parallel philosophy with different identities to like the Wii and the DSi that are still just parallel but are closer, and then we connect. I think. And it's interesting that Nintendo for the Switch generation looked at that as a failure.
Sure.
Because
technically, yes.
Yeah.
Because I think what you're implying is that because the Mii's were so front-facing, especially in Wii U and 3DS, and because specifically Wii U was not popular, because it was continuing the trend of the Wii, and that obviously notoriously that's confusing in some ways and hard to sell in other ways, they tried their best to reject elements that were front-facing of Wii U.
Yeah.
The Switch loses a lot of the bubbliness of the Wii U, a lot of the sort of... The Wii U's got like this like amorphous, strange, ethereal tone to it, where little guys are running around and carrying game cards, and the menu, you can press X to switch between different menus, and like, but then the Switch is it clears out all of that, and the Mii's end up becoming sort of a vestigial structure, which I think is maybe, obviously there's a lot to talk about in terms of Mii's on Wii U and 3DS, but I think where the interest for us mostly lies is why they became sort of like a tailbone of the Switch of like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a sign of where the evolution was before, but it's not. It's almost not necessary anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you just look at the Mii Maker itself,
Yeah.
the Mii Maker on Switch is very simple.
Yeah.
And it still has the options of the Wii U and 3DS Mii Makers, which have a lot more customizations than the Wii one does.
Except, does it have a camera thing? Can you like take a photo of yourself and then somehow get that into the Switch Mii Maker?
No, I don't
I don't think so.
so.
Well, obviously there's no
I
camera on the Switch,
yeah.
but
But it retains some of the advancements
Yeah.
in Mii technology.
well,
I
yeah,
guess.
all of it. It's the
Yeah.
same as the. I think it might be even a little bit more expanded.
It has no bells and whistles though. Like
Sure.
all the playfulness of the one.
Of course,
on,
yeah.
on
There's no music.
There's no music.
Yeah.
It's very basic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's hidden a couple menus down in system settings, and it's just obviously not useful.
There's actually one thing that I want to. You have a better memory about the Wii U than I do.
Yeah.
Switch, when you boot it up for the first time or creating a new profile, it gives you a couple of options for creating your profile.
Yeah.
It is mostly just icons. It's a Mario logo.
Right.
It's a picture of Mario. Whatever. Like, there's some Star Fox and Splatoon. I don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
And then, or you can choose a Mii.
Yeah.
Mii is one of the options. And for myself and for most people I know, choosing a Mii as your profile icon is the way to go.
Yeah.
With the Switch. Were there, and on Wii U you had a Mii that was attached to your Nintendo Network ID.
Yeah.
And so when someone added you as a friend, they would see your Mii. But on Wii U, or I guess 3DS, were there icons? Were there Nintendo Mario icons, character icons? Okay,
There's
so
only
that
the
so that is another, I think, subtle way
Yeah.
where they've pushed Mii's a little bit to the side, where Mii's are now an option
Yeah.
in a set of options that are other Nintendo things, in a way that even just creating a profile during the Wii U and 3DS generation, you had to choose a Mii. You no longer have to do that with the Switch.
Yeah, and
That's just something I've never heard anyone talk about before.
no, yeah, totally. And I mean,
I'm the first man to ever realize this.
And
This is a legendary, historic moment. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
it again sort of solidifies the point
Yeah.
that Nintendo clearly thought with Wii U and 3DS, this ubiquity of the Mii's that we're discussing, the
Yeah.
intuitive nature of them, was important enough that should still be your entry point in.
Yeah.
And on 3DS in particular, there were still several Mii games. At
Yes,
launch,
no, absolutely.
At launch, you had Pilot Wings Resort.
Yeah.
And then obviously you had Tomodachi Life in 2013. And then you had in 2016
Miitopia.
Miitopia.
Yeah, and also in 2016, Miitomo on mobile.
And it being on mobile is really interesting because that released in, I want to say like March 2016.
Sure, I believe you.
It was the first quarter of the year.
Yeah.
And that's all about Mii's.
Yes.
So it makes me wonder at what point they decided to move away from Mii's. Because
It had to have been as they were finalizing decisions for the Switch.
Yeah.
Because making multiple big Mii games
Yeah.
at the end of the generation, and Tomodachi Life in particular selling very, very well.
Yeah.
One of the highest selling games on the 3DS. And actually on Wii U, they kind of stopped that. There were some Wii blank, or like we had Wii Party U.
and we had Wii Fit U and Sports Club. I
Yeah.
think those are the only ones.
Yeah, that foreground. However,
Yeah.
Mario Kart 8, you can ride as your Mii.
Yep.
Smash 4,
Obviously
Mii's
play as
added
your
for the
Mii.
first time, and there are a few other examples.
Yeah.
Mii's in Nintendo Land, but they petered that off for Wii U. But obviously, Mii's are still like entirely ubiquitous part of that software. Actually, another thing, New Super Mario Bros. Mii, that never ended up happening. That was I think that was a Wii. Before New Super Wii, it was supposed to be Mii.
interesting.
Or no, was it supposed to be? New Super U, I think, was supposed to be New Super Mario Bros. Mii, where you could play as a Mii in New
That's
Super
very
Mario
interesting. I
Bros.
didn't
It was
know
like a
that.
tech demo-y thing that never ended up coming to
Yeah.
fruition. So like there are all these streams going on, but 2016 with Miitopia and Miitomo, that's the most that games have been about Mii's almost ever, except for Tomodachi Life.
And it's interesting because Miitomo failed.
Yeah.
Now, I think you can pretty clearly say that Miitomo failed because there's really not a game there.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's a social,
it's a social thing.
I guess.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah, so did I. And I still listen to that Miitomo music sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a great song.
I think just the question it begs to me is if Nintendo feels that Mii's are so inescapably tied to Wii
Yeah.
that you invite all of the negative connotations that the Wii brand ended up begetting
Yeah.
by having the Mii's continue. Because obviously, they weren't so worried about it that Mii's are scrubbed from Switch.
No, of course not.
But the utilization of your Mii on Switch is really Mario Kart 8 Deluxe,
Yeah.
Smash Ultimate,
Yeah.
Miitomo, or
Miitopia.
I always get the fucking names confused. And like wearing a mask in Switch Sports Resort.
Oh, to make your Switch Sports Mates look like a Mii.
Not Switch Sports Resort. That's the game I want to have happen. It's not a real
Nintendo Switch Sports.
Nintendo Switch Sports. But it's just, and you can play as a Mii in golf.
Oh, in Super Rush.
In Super Rush,
Yeah,
yes.
yes.
In Super Rush.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Oh, because you actually play the story mode as your Mii. That's very interesting. I mean, other than Miitopia, which is a remake of a 3DS game, that's gotta be one of the only Switch era games that has a Mii as the focus. I mean, at least the single player portion.
Unless you can play as like you mean like fucking Go Vacation. But
maybe,
probably. But also Go Vacation's a port of a Wii game,
Yeah.
so you probably can.
Absolutely.
The point is they exist only in this very edgewise fashion, which is what makes the Miitopia port so interesting. To me. I still
because they put a lot of effort into that. That's probably the best character creator that Nintendo's ever made, if not one of the best of all time.
and it does go into that depth direction we're talking about.
Yes.
But yeah, what it makes me wonder about, and sort of part of the reason I want to have this discussion is not only to reflect about how much I personally like the Wii's and how smartly I think they were designed.
Mii's?
Mii's, sorry. But it makes me wonder if Mii's have a future on the next system.
This is, when you brought this up to me, I'm like, this is really where I want the conversation to go.
Yeah.
The question is Nintendo done with Mii's? Because for Switch, they feel vestigial. They feel like, okay, we're porting Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. We gotta have our Mii's in there.
Right.
People want their profile. You can have a Mii to represent yourself.
Yeah.
But in other ways, in Smash Ultimate, which is a bigger version of Smash 4, it's Smash Ultimate. Everyone is here. You can't not have the Mii's. In most of these cases, it feels like they're only carrying it over by obligation to previous games. A couple of small examples notwithstanding, but almost everything about the Switch exclusive software designed from the ground up for Switch has no reference to Mii's. You no longer even select a Mii as a profile icon when you're starting a game. Each game now has its own menu that doesn't have a little face next to it. It's just, maybe typing your name or whatever. But I think that I just wonder if they can make the cut.
Yeah.
If they can get rid of Mii's entirely, because let's say Mario Kart 10 comes out. Let's say Smash 6 comes out.
Yeah.
Are Mii's still in there? Can you play as them, or do they just get rid of those and no one complains?
What's really interesting. What's really interesting with the last wave of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC is that there are like 18 new Mii costumes.
Oh yeah, sure. And obviously, Mii costumes very big part of Smash 4 or Smash Ultimate DLC.
Yeah, and I think
huge part of Smash Ultimate DLC.
I think that those Mii costumes in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I think, come from Tour.
Oh, sure. I'm sure that's true.
Because you can play as your Mii in Tour.
Yeah, Mario Kart Tour.
And you still use your Mii when you go like onto My Nintendo. Mm-hmm. That is still your mascot on My Nintendo. That's true. So that there are these places that are kind of larger than Switch. Mm-hmm. Smartphone apps, your online account. Yeah. That still do use the Mii's only. Yeah. Or, well, Mario Kart Tour doesn't only use Mii's, if you can believe it.
You can even play as Donkey Kong Jr. in that game.
You can play fucking pixel art Donkey Kong Jr. in that game. So I think that Nintendo recognizes, in my opinion, the strength of the Mii's. Mm-hmm. But I think that they had to necessarily step away from Wii.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But I don't think that they're in that position anymore.
I agree.
I think that not only has Nintendo built up their brand so strong again,
they built it up anew.
Yeah, that it doesn't matter. Yeah. I also think that we are at the point where the Wii is a nostalgic system. Totally. And if you look at the library of Switch games, they're already leveraging this fact. Yeah. Bringing Galaxy back, obviously just a part-time collection, but also Skyward Sword HD. Mm-hmm. Nintendo Switch Sports is
in the same vein.
in that same vein.
Even in some way, Move It is Smooth Moves again.
It's just a Smooth sequel. Yeah. Endless Ocean Luminous,
Great point.
obviously.
Great point.
Another code even.
Yeah.
Because the second game is a Wii game. And then if you include DS era nostalgias, there's even more. Another code game.
Yes.
But also remaking BDSP and everything. Of course, obviously that's not quite Nintendo's
Yeah.
responsibility, but
we've reached the point where a little over a decade later, people our age with spending money are now like, man, remember back in the day?
yeah, I don't think that the Wii has the vitriol towards it or the connotations now that it used to have. Time sands all this stuff down. I mean, as we always talk about, famously, everyone hated the fucking GameCube. Now the GameCube is Nintendo's best system. If people had any intellectual honesty, they would know that the GameCube was always one of Nintendo's best systems, I think. But so I personally believe that Mii's will be back on the next system.
I
That's
agree,
my shot.
but I do think that there might be a chance that they get a refresh. That it isn't just using the exact same Mii's again. That the character customizer gets an overhaul. That there are more options, and I know that kind of goes against what they were originally. The appeal for them was originally. But character creation, customization are a lot more prevalent now, and people want to be able to make a character look more like them. And so I think that there's a chance that, if not Sportsman, it's not exactly Sportsman because they're not going to do that, but a more realistic Xbox Avatar-y style refresh for Mii's that has a more detailed character creator that frankly you might be able to buy, like have clothes that you can get with your platinum points or whatever. I think that maybe they aren't even called Mii's anymore, but I think avatars will continue forward, but I almost don't know if Mii's are necessarily something that will continue to go forward.
See, I don't agree with that, because I feel like with the Sportsmates they thought that they could do something different, and it clearly didn't really work. Now obviously that game sold a shit ton, so people still wanted
Sportsmates nostalgia, countdown, T-minus 12 years.
People obviously wanted that game for what it was as a Wii Sports style game, but there's obviously a ton of frustration that it wasn't Mii's. And I think ditching Mii's in some way is like, it's like ditching Mario for like kind of a different Mario.
Sure.
It's like the Mii's are characters now.
Yeah.
Now, and they're an interesting place where they used to be like a system level character. Now they are essentially just another one of Nintendo's many mascot characters.
Yeah.
The same way that like, even if fucking Fox McCloud isn't gonna get new games all the time, Fox is always gonna be there.
Yeah. So now, do you think that I actually do agree with you? I don't think they're gonna completely get rid of Mii's, but does this fit in what you're thinking? If basically everything has changed except for the name Mii, if suddenly there's a lot more character proportions and facial structure options and a lot more hairstyles and like if they look radically different from the simplistic style that has retained almost exactly from when the Wii launched, but they're still called Mii's, does that fit into what you're saying?
I mean, I just don't think that it would need to be as radical as you're saying.
Sure.
Just like in the case again with the Wii U and 3DS, they doubled. I mean, I'm throwing that out there, but it's at least doubled the options you had, and they're still recognizably Mii's.
Yeah,
you can see a very clear difference between like ostensibly a Gen 1 Mii and a Gen 2 Mii, but they're still Mii's.
Yeah. And then there's the Gen 2.5, which is Miitopia.
Yeah.
On Switch.
And so I don't think you need to lose that identity.
Sure.
And I think it's also important to remember that even the Mii's themselves, just in the course of the Wii's generation, began looking totally different. I mean, we've been playing Wii Party. A Mii in Wii Party is not a Mii in Wii Sports.
Absolutely, yes.
So
their arms are connected to their bodies.
They have arms. They're wearing different clothing. I think you make a really good point about using your platinum points and everything to get new clothes. I think that's a really strong idea. So I think that there's a lot you can do without completely changing what a Mii is.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
And I actually think you make a really, really strong point about there being this great convergence between these points Nintendo has already existing, people loving character creators, we being a little bit more in the zeitgeist, being a little bit more accepted, people having nostalgia for them. I think it just makes sense to carry those characters forward.
Yeah. But in a more modern sense that I think in some ways could act as the refresh point for that side of Nintendo that I think Nintendo probably wants. Because I do think that even if Wii nostalgia and there isn't the same negative connotation that there was in Wii U generation, I think that Nintendo wants to take steps forward to define themselves as a modern modern Nintendo. And
Yeah.
Mii's are, again, they're kind of the only vestigial leftover thing of it's basically the exact same that it was a decade ago. And so I think that if they make a new style of, it's still called Mii's, but
Yeah.
if those can then become the iconic character style, I think that that's probably something that they would want to chase.
You know, it's an interesting point you make also, because something I think about is like the Mii's are only associated with Wii because that's when they were introduced.
Correct.
And I know that sounds silly, but
Yes,
hear me out for a second. The launch of Mario is associated with Nintendo because Mario's been here since the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
And Mario was the one selling systems up through GameCube. But it was the Mii's for Gen 7 that took Mario's place in a way.
Great point.
And you
For the major launch game, you mean?
yeah, and you can in for most of the system's biggest games,
Correct.
you can almost make an argument that the Mii's were at that time Nintendo wanting to be a new modern company with a new face.
Totally agree. Yeah. I mean, for one of the first times Nintendo had leaned into customizability. I mean,
And
very few games before the Wii generation had any kind of character customization.
Yeah, and the first time that they started to really deprioritize Mario and their familiar faces at the front of the biggest games. And
Yeah, well, actually, that's a great point because, I mean, you could easily imagine a continuation of the GameCube era where instead of Mii Sports, it was Mario Sports.
and it wouldn't have done as well, I don't think.
Maybe? I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it wouldn't have felt as fresh necessarily.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily. Well, okay. Depends on what we're really breaking down is like, okay, if Mario Sports was bundled in at the launch of the Wii, it would have sold as well as Wii Sports had.
Yeah.
And if it was Mario music, if it was Mario Party, I know that's stupid. But
Yeah.
like if it wasn't Mii's, I do think that era would have felt less distinct. And so I agree with them wanting to step forward. But you can easily imagine Mario and his cast of characters, especially up to that point, and still in some ways through today, are the generic characters you plug and play into any goddamn genre, and they can just do whatever. But they added the Mii's for that exact purpose.
Yeah.
At the moment when they were trying to diversify into accepting everyone into playing Nintendo games, that the Mii's were a big part of how they changed their brand to be more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, and I just think that Nintendo is at a time now when they're trying to leverage everything they have. All of their characters, for all of these multimedia purposes, for merch, for everything, that rejecting the Mii's would be a mistake.
Sure, I agree with that.
And I think that that's ultimately my largest point. I think that there's a pragmatic reason why Switch had to remove anything really that could be front-facedly associated with that generation they're trying to move away from. But now you have the goodwill and the good name of the Switch, which is part of the reason why I think the next system would just be called Switch 2.
Yeah.
Or something. But that's a different conversation. I think that generally they're in a place now where the Mii's can be allowed to just be Nintendo characters.
Sure.
And like Mario, main mascot Nintendo characters, opposed to Wii characters.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think Nintendo would ever go back to like a Wara Wara Plaza style, big fucking community bustling, complicated menu system.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to see the Mii's in a little bit more stuff again.
Well, I think it is possible that they come back in a more front-facing way. If again we're leaning into this idea that you can customize your character, you can spend some points, and also I think that there's a very good chance that one of the big changes from Switch to their next generation console is higher degree of social activity.
Totally. That's a good
Messaging
point.
people, better friend menus, whatever, all the stuff from the fucking app integrated into the goddamn console. And I think that there is a chance that there's some sort of place where Mii's are walking around, or that you can send messages to your friend with pictures of your Mii's and pose them together, or purchase little frames to make a little thing of your Mii's together. But again, I think the new style of Mii's that feel like a totally refreshed social Nintendo thing, and obviously Nintendo's been pretty bad about social stuff. The Mii's were a step forward, and then friend codes, and then on the Switch and the app, and they're pretty bad about it. But I think that there's a chance that current modern Nintendo wanting to make themselves a little bit more acceptable and approachable to like what is actually popular right now, better social hub, better social interactivity, and having a revamped set of Mii's and Mii designed characters going alongside that, I think can synergize in a really, really good way.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point also, I feel like Nintendo was just too early with a couple things. I think they were too early with Miiverse, and I think they were too early with Miitomo.
Yeah.
Because these are the sorts of things that Nintendo needs now. Because suddenly, and I think they've laid the seeds for this with your Nintendo account and everything, but they've got you going to theme parks, they've got you going to movies, they've got you probably watching TV shows, they got you playing games, obviously.
Yeah.
They've got you interacting online to fucking watch Nintendo Directs and go to the Pikmin Picnic website and all this stuff. Now they need some place to anchor you in the middle. And I think Miitomo, a different version of Miitomo now could have been that.
Sure.
But I agree with you completely. I do think that their next system will link out more.
Sure.
Because the Switch is pretty insular.
Sure.
For the most part. So I think... And they're going to need a face of that. And not everybody can just be Mario. I think that's the utility of a Mii, particularly when they're in this current climate of multimedia and everything. I mean, think about Bitmojis on Snapchat and everything. Think about,
absolutely.
Think about how...
Holy shit. Bitmojis are massive.
Yeah, they're massive. Think about your Apple avatar or whatever.
Yeah, which is basically Bitmoji.
Basically,
they're you can't. Honestly, I don't really know if I can tell the difference.
Yeah, these big lifestyle companies like Meta, like Apple, understand that people need this avatar.
Yeah,
and I think it's in large part because of Nintendo. I think that was again.
That's a great point.
The Mii's were very forward thinking.
Yeah, and then Xbox 360 with the avatars being added and all that. Yeah.
So I just think that it's unlikely that in this current climate, that the Mii's wouldn't be anywhere other than all over the next system.
I totally agree, but I think what we kind of narrowed in on is I do think that they will be. I think they'll be overhauled. I think we're gonna get a fucking MiiU. Me too.
Yeah.
The Me Too movement, basically.
Jeez. Anything else you want to say about Mii's?
They're kind of goofy, kind of funny. My favorite Mii that I ever made was a character named Ant, and he was a little guy. And I got the eyebrows to be going sticking out of his head. Yeah. And he had a big bulbous nose, like Olimar. And I'm like, that's Ant. And he's as short as he can be, as tiny as his body can be, wearing black. It was great.
I mean, you got to remember like the Check Me Out channel.
Yeah.
Where you can just share Mii's. Nintendo realized that what you're saying is totally true. Yeah. They're funny, and it's funny to work within the constraints to make something good. We were looking at Seinfeld Mii's this morning. Yeah. Like there's a whole community around using that Mii maker as best as you can, which is why I think also there still will be a degree of limitation whatever comes next. Sure. I think they recognize that limitation is useful. Yeah.
We're not going to get fucking Dragon's Dogma Mii maker.
But I also think the goofiness extends to animations. The way you pick them up in the Mii maker and they like wiggle around a little bit. Or the various simple but fun ways they emote in a ton of different games. The little like Stormcloud that'll pop up over their head when they're sad or whatever. I mean, I think Nintendo really hammered on a language that they're not going to get rid of.
Yeah. But we don't know.
We do know.
We do?
Yeah.
Oh shit, that's nice.
We know. Do they know? They know.
They know.
They know. They know.
Okay, we're not centered. No.
Extremely loud, incorrect buzzer.
We're getting fucking cozy in here.
This is good.
We are filling the frame.
I'll fill your frame. Fill your frame with honey, and then I'll stick a bunch of bees on you. Say, hey, this fucker stole your honey.
Okay, ready?
How many bees could you kill? I could kill thousands of bees if I had to.
In one day?
Yeah.
With what?
Hands.
Really?
Feet.
Wow.
Teeth.
Wow. Okay, you're kicking a bee. I really do not think you can kick a bee.
Roundhouse kick. What if it's a roundhouse kick?
I think a bee could.
What if it's a?
I think a bee could survive a punch.
What if it's a donkey kick?
I'm not a donkey.
No, but you can do a donkey kick.
What do you mean?
You never done donkey.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Well, don't do it.
The donkey kick is when you get down like this. And you go.
Wow. Wow, good job, Abram.
There's power in a donkey kick.
Yeah?
I think you could kill a bee with a donkey kick.
Sure. Now, are you going to be able to hit the bee with a donkey kick?
They're coming in a swarm. Is that a fucking 1 bee on 1 person scenario?
Well, you know, you call that mono bee mono.